Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is yet another epi of League Unlock. My name is Eric Flying Han Solo on today's Millennium Falcon type of an episode, as we are looking back at the moments that are burned, entrenched in the memory bank of our brains for the most iconic play from every iteration of the midseason invitational. And iconic isn't necessarily the best, craziest outplay, but kind of the one we remember the most, or most encapsulates what went on in that event. So it's not necessarily the most insane outplay, although some of them on this list are, but we got over 10 different MSIs to get through, and hard to pick a single play for a lot of these events. And if we start at that inaugural tournament back in 2015, you've got obviously Febiven solo killing Faker, but that's kind of how the Azir Zed matchup is supposed to go. Koro had this insane 1v3 on the Gnar, but the most memorable one that sits in our memory has still got to be the pentakill out of Lucian from Bang. And this play obviously works on multiple levels. It's insane team fighting out of SKT, but Febiven almost pulls this one back, and if not for a fast on the trigger QSS out of Bang, he probably turns this around with a flash 4-man, almost 5-man Cassiopeia ulti that Bang, again, cleanses very quickly and is able to clean up the fight. But if he doesn't cleanse it, he dies. Febiven turns this around. This was kind of the first play or first event where you saw a Western team actually going toe-to-toe against the Korean team in the last couple of years. We obviously got the Game 5 in the semifinals and the rematch, but that group stage match, the Bang Penta, I think remains one of the most iconic plays, not just from that MSI, but in Bang's career, as this was his first international event in that starting 80 carry spot for SKT. There'd be a whole lot more highlights coming from him in the near future, but mega shout out to that one. But there were a lot to choose from in 2015. Obviously, any of the LeBlanc Game 5 against EDG as well, but going with the Bang Penta 2016. You had lots of Stixxay Caitlyn performances to choose from. Faker hiding away from RNG, but you best believe the most memorable probably game and moment from that game is the insane 20k comeback Counter Logic Gaming against RNG. And of course, the play you have to go to is the Xmithie Dragon Steel. And this is, number one, this is going to be the 5th dragon, which is like Elder Dragon rules back in 2016. And using a Kindred ulti to delay an objective is kind of child's play nowadays. But in 2016, that was some new tech. That was unheard of. That was an insane play. And this was the full turnaround of the comeback for CLG in this game. And Xmithie absolutely deserves his flowers here for this play. This is when Kobe was absolutely losing his mind for the comeback. A rare MSI where CLG or North America completely overperforms the expectations, but I think despite them making it to the finals, this matchup specifically is the most iconic run from the event. Even though you had some nice back and forth from SKT against RNG, you had some insane team fights between them in the group stage. I think the lasting memory for a play that most people probably have. I don't want to, generalize too much, but I think a lot of people remember that specific RNG CLG game, and if you had to choose a singular play from that one, it would 100% be Xmithie on the Dragon. 2017 MSI gets very tricky because there's a whole lot of plays. You have the insane Kled escape from 957, classic triple-digit number for a Chinese player. Then you've got the Peanut Lee Sin performance against Gam that was absolutely insane. But again, we're talking iconic, either had biggest impact on the tournament, was in a high-stakes match, which this one was, and the lasting memory. What happened at MSI 2017? Well, we had G2 go to the finals against SKT, and we had your boy Wolf absolutely slam the door on any type of not even comeback, well, sort of a comeback, as G2 was kind of climbing back into this third game before Wolf flashes over the wall for this 4-man Zyra ulti engage that catches out both carries for G2. And even though Faker is the guy to kind of clean it up, and that's what Freak the cast, we're highlighting exactly what Faker did, but this was all about Wolf, the oft forgotten member of SKT, going over a wall, completely unexpected for G2 as they get blown out of the water at that point and end up losing that game 3, end up losing the whole finals in 4. And we don't want to take away from G2 because, again, this is a very competitive event, a very competitive finals, at least from what we're expected or accustomed from SKT doing 2 squads in finals. But there were even clips of Wolf talking about he's surrounded by such bright, shining stars, and he was literally comparing them to suns, not just, standout players. But Faker and Bang, he even mentions that he's like, I'm just happy when people can remember me, remember something that I've done, and we absolutely remember you as an icon, Mr. Wolf, and we remember the Zyra play from 2017 MSI where you completely dominated that matchup. 2018 MSI is, I'm going to say, the easiest one on this list to do, even though there were probably 5-6 Uzi-specific highlights that you could take, many of them, if not, there was some Xayah, there was some Kog'Maw, but most of them were Kai'Sa at this event, as she was kind of, I believe this is her first year on the Rift, and why she became absolutely busted in the meta. But I think we all know what the most iconic play out of Uzi was at this event. It's not the one where he flashes in the parent bit to die. It's not the one where he calls to the split second what Prey's QSS cooldown is so that Xiaohu can flash in and Malzahar ulti him. It is, of course, the miraculous Kai'Sa escape against Peanut's gank. And this is because if he doesn't do everything exactly the way that he does in pixel perfect reaction time, he dies here. And yes, it's not maybe the highest stakes match, but it fully encapsulates how dominant Uzi was. This, to me, remains the best individual tournament by a single player of all time, except for maybe Zeka 2022 Worlds. But that's your 1A and 1B, and I know the casters kind of, we say, well, Prey has the misplay where he flashes in and can't pull the feathers back in, and maybe it's a slight misplay, but I'm more giving the edge. This guy, you're tilted seeing Uzi dance on you like that, breaking ankles, you're left desperate to make sure that you get this kill on the Kai'Sa. They're unable to do it, and I'll even say this had a lasting impression on them losing in finals. Maybe that's a little bit ridiculous, but Uzi was truly on another plane of existence, another dimension, another stratosphere at the 2018 Midseason Invitational. And yes, RNG built entire comps around him, played around him, but why would you not when this guy is playing at such a ludicrous level like he was at 2018? So shout out to the king, Mr. Uzi down at AD carry. 2019 MSI, probably the hardest one to do on this list. And if you watched the video where we talked about the G2 versus SKT/T1 rivalry at MSI, you know there were an insane amount of highlights to choose from that individual matchup, and especially 2019. Obviously, you've got Faker's Sylas engage, you've got the crazy Wonder backdoor, you've got the Shy on Akali, you've got Caps' Penta on Akali. To pick a single play from this event to dub the most iconic that encapsulates the whole thing. How many times do I say encapsulates today, by the way? It was hard. It's tricky, but we ended up going with what showcases how dominant the MVP of the finals were and how in another realm G2 was at this event, and especially from tournament start to end. It was Collapse on the Rift, and it was Team Liquid being the last ones to feel it. Yes, we're going with that Irelia 1v2 out of Caps, where he completely styles on Xmithie and Jensen, and you can preface this by saying, Why didn't Team Liquid wait 10 more seconds for the Syndra ulti to be up? Because if he has that, he probably kill Caps before he can make this insane outplay, especially when they waited for so long to even try this gank. But he plays this so perfectly, dodging Syndra's skill shots before the gank even happens. He dodges the stun with a fancy type of footwork, gets a double stun on his own, then a double ulti. Look at all these dash resets, dodges another Syndra Q. Even though the Sejuani stun hits, he's got the ignite to kill it, Smithy. This is absolute pixel perfect play out of Collapse. I know Mickey shows up at the end, but really this is a 1v2 through and through out of Caps, and just the exclamation point, the cherry on top for one of his most dominant tournaments to date. There's a lot of iconic moments from 2019, but I feel like this 1v2 fully shows just how dominant G2 was and how confident Caps was. It looked like he had a premonition. He saw the future, that he was already going to make this outplay, with how unbelievably confident he played through to get the fastest international best-of-5 win in history. That was the third game to clinch it for the boys for G2. 2020 MSI, the most iconic moment was it not happening at all. Of course, that is the COVID era. And then 2021... the Iceland era had a couple international events going down at Iceland, a neutral ground for a lot of these squads, and we just finished talking about Uzi in 2018. 2021 was absolutely a pick your moment out of Gala, filling the shoes of Uzi. You can talk about this as Xiaohu going to the top lane, and RNG, being absolute beasts in spring, and Gala being an absolute beast, carrying the mantle for not just Uzi, but on the Kai'Sa especially. And the most iconic play, there's some Baron fights that he wins, but in the finals against D+, Game 3, it has got to be the literal 1v5 engage from your Kai'Sa. Not only does he Killer Instinct into 5 members, but he flashes to go even deeper to ensure that he gets the kill onto Ghost, and before the rest of the RNG squad shows up, he's got the Guardian Angel. We're so accustomed to AD carries, especially Western ones, no offense guys, holding on to that flash, playing a little passive, waiting for the right moment to maybe, perhaps, take over the fight. LPL AD carries, and especially Gala, they don't wait for that moment, they make that moment by doing the engage himself, even though there's a Gnar on the squad, but this is his full, here I am moment on that international stage, and he completely obliterates D+ Kia to go up 2-1, and they would eventually win that finals, of course. And again, there were many highlights from those finals. Even, Ghost gets a pentakill on the Tristana. That's right, remember when Ghost was on D+ Kia. Mad Lions had some incredible base defenses. Carzzy has this Baron steal against D+, but when, again, you're looking back at the event, the one thing that stands out is, okay, Gala was on the Rift, and this was him showcasing his talents, and that 1v5 fully showcases just what an absolute terror on the Rift ya boy Gala was. 2022, we move on, and oh look, it's RNG again with this iconic event. Maybe the most iconic play was RNG playing remotely and having some ping issues, but again, when you talk about the G2 T1 rivalry, it was easy to maybe put Owner's Viego resets or Faker's juke on Caps on the Akali, and honestly, those would probably be acceptable plays. And even though RNG is the one who ends up winning this event in Game 5 against T1, still feel like this is a rare one where the most iconic play is actually a Faker moment, even though they're not winning. And this was, remember, undefeated spring T1 coming, rolling in, but they completely steamroll RNG in a 4v5 on the Baron Pit. Faker's incredible Lissandra engage, followed up by Curious Tom Kench, and then Guma rocks it home with the Jinx. But again, this was kind of, okay, 2022, these young guns on T1 showcasing their stuff on the international stage. They hadn't been to a World Finals yet at this point, so this was kind of the first iteration of a learning curve, number one, because, again, they lose to RNG, but you have this incredible call from Medic of, form is temporary, but Faker is forever. Kudos to him. Great call on that one. But just an absolutely disgusting, perfect engage in a 4v5. I don't think RNG was even ready for it. And again, there's a lot of iconic moments from that 2022 MSI, but the lasting one for me, at least, is that engage from Faker and the follow-up from the rest of the squads. It feels almost poetic to have him be the guy, leading the charge, and the rest of these young guys showing up to absolute pixel perfect play on the Rift. So shout out to them. Shout out to RNG, even though they were the ones that ended up winning. 2023, you want to talk about pixel perfect. I still think to this day, we have not seen better team fighting than what we got out of the 2023 version of JD Gaming. This whole event was all about the LPL as it was a BLG JDG showdown in the finals. There was some insane team fighting out of BLG, Gen.G, T1, and JDG, but again, iconic moment to choose. What stood out the most? It has got to be Game 3 in the lower bracket, JDG versus BLG. This is iconic picks and iconic plays. Number one, Ruler on the Zeri and Knight on the Syndra. You know, the Zeri's 12-1 at this point. So yes, it is a certified Zeri moment, but we're watching, it's a 4v5. Kanavi is dead, and how perfectly Ruler dodges pretty much every skill shot out of BLG. The reason this game is even close is because Bin's Jax is so disgustingly fed, but the stuns out of Knight, we've already seen a couple in this clip play out, and they just continually deny Bin access to Ruler and the rest of the backline. He's forced to do his Zanyas before he gets blown up, but time and time again, Knight is just landing 1-2-man stunts. He doesn't miss anything. Even though Elk cleanses immediately, it doesn't matter because Ruler is going to dodge one more Thresh Hook on the way out, and to close it all out, one more stun at the end out of Knight as Kanavi finally shows up to secure the ace and the Baron. Great job, Sejuani. That this was an absolute masterclass out of both Ruler and Knight taking over a team fight, and showcased why this JDG squad was a mere 2 best of 5s, one tilt against T1 away from completing that golden road. They were so unbelievably dominant within the LPL and so unbelievably dominant at that MSI. You know, this was peak two-headed dragon of T1, Gen.G, and even a high-flying Billy Gaming roster. So, it's fun to reminisce about the absolute beauty that was that JDG roster at its absolute height, and again speaks to just why the entire LPL has been run by Knight for, well, many years now. So big shout out to JDG from that one. 2024 MSI, we roll on. They're starting to get a lot more familiar, and this is another one where maybe you would say a 28 kill game, setting an all-time record out of Pays on the Kalista. Probably deserving of being the most iconic one, but even though Gen.G had a dominant finals against BLG and a pretty dominant run throughout the entire tournament, to me, one of the most iconic and memorable things from this whole event was a near comeback that didn't happen. Anytime you're finding a team fight win down 13,000 gold, it's probably worth mentioning. And Knight back on the Rift, this time on an entirely different squad, and he pairs up with Bin, the guy he just beat up on in that last clip, for this absolutely insane duo Camille Orianna engage where Bin and Knight flash on the same frame. If you go frame by frame, they flash at the exact same time. Knight needs that extra little bit of range to make sure he's able to get the shockwave onto Bin as he engages on the Camille. Again, down 13,000 gold against Gen.G, and the end result is a 4-man Orianna shockwave. And the only reason this isn't an even more insane play is just because Gen.G is so far ahead. If we're even close to an even game state in terms of gold, I mean, there's more people getting blown up. Keen is on a Zac and he can't go down, but they kill Chovy and Ruler and come back into this game and make it contested and really do them a service by allowing the game to go on longer. And that's how Pays ends that game with 28 kills on the Kalista. Is They were just about to close out that game. So really, Pays should be thanking BLG for blowing him up there, because that gave him the opportunity to be able to come back and set a record for an international event, Worlds or MSI, with all of those kills. But even though BLG lose that game, and even though it's Gen G coming away with the tournament victory, big shout out. I remember, and I'm sure most people remember, one of the most insane engages in the history of the game, courtesy of Bin and Knight and the rest of BLG. They get a little bit of credit, but mainly Bin and Knight absolutely putting on that clinic of a comeback. Now we're to the most recent, 2025, which the story of this whole event was, for sure, listen, FlyQuest stepped up, had a good performance, but really the story was Gen G and T1 throwing down multiple game 5s, T1 being tested by AL. They had the big level up. We had many, many, many insane team fights between Gen G and T1. But just think back. Can you remember one specific play, one specific team fight that highlights it that you remember and say, that was it. That was the game-breaking moment. Maybe you do, and your memory's better than mine, but I couldn't have a specific play. Like, there were so many different highlights to go through from those series, but what really brought home the whole event for me, and what I remember, is G2 versus Gen G earlier on in the event. And this is 23 series wins in a row, Gen G. The most dominant year we've had in a very long time. So it's fitting that you picked Canyon, absolutely styling on G2 with this lovely little Rift Herald play where he takes the Q, or he cancels the Q early to go into the Rift Herald, only to dance that around and get an extra kill onto Hans Sama. This, to me, perfectly paints the picture of how Gen G was truly in a league of its own, and on international events. And listen, the series is only 1-1 here. They're not even up 2-0, like trolling in game 3 or anything, but the confidence and level that Gen G was at allowed them to do plays like this. And you can talk to Canyon, say maybe he didn't mean to, but literally made his coaches choke on their own words with that play, probably because they're laughing that, did he mean to do that? Is he actually just BMing these guys this hard? And the truth is, Gen G were so damn good that they could BM players. They could BM entire teams and organizations on the international stage because they were just that far ahead of them. So yes, absolutely iconic out of Canyon and Gen G at that whole 2025 event. And we'll check back in soon to see what the most iconic play out of 2026 MSI is. But that is all the time today for League Unlocked. My name is Eric. Thank you to all you beautiful people for hanging out, supporting us in the comments as always.